Okay, finally, part 4. We're here. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! I have not been kidnapped. But today we're going to do the other 3 maps for the agent pick rates here, the agent meta of all of the tier 1 games and a little bit of NA tier 2. And then we're going to go through the overall pick rates for all the agents and the overall win rates as well, which I'm sure you'll all be interested in. But first off, let's dive into some of these maps, and we'll start with Lotus. And holy, look at some of these numbers, right? Again, pick rates, left-hand columns for these agents. Those are gone from light blue to dark blue. Darker it is, the higher it is. And the non-mirror win-loss, again, if you don't know what that means, go back and watch part 1, right? But look at some of these things, right? This goes from green to red, or red to green, I should say. And yeah, oh my goodness. Look at that Astra number right at the top. 21 and 4. Now, again, some of this, a lot of this, can be explained. Fnatic. I know you can't just say, oh, Fnatic, that's just an excuse. But to be fair, Fnatic did play like a lot of games on this map. And pretty much always it was a non-mirror game for Astra versus Omen. And pretty much always Fnatic would win. So that is a big part of this, okay? I actually don't think it's the same, or I can't definitively conclude that it's the same as like a Haven, where there's kind of other data out there that would suggest that maybe something's going on. This is just Fnatic playing a lot of Astra when almost no one else was, and Fnatic just being better at the map. Now, to be fair, EG also picked up an Astra towards the end of the year and also looked a lot better on that map. So maybe, you know, it's very possible that Fnatic were just onto something. Maybe Astra is the better agent for that map. You know, maybe that just is the case and was always the case. And, you know, that's a perfectly reasonable takeaway to come away from this all. That Fnatic were just ahead of the game on Astra. Astra is the better agent. A team should be playing Astra. I can hear that argument. And honestly, yeah, I don't even necessarily disagree. I think that that's a perfectly reasonable take to come away with. But I'm just saying that, you know, for this win rate, Astra v Omen, Fnatic are a big part of it. In terms of other ways of approaching the map, again, you can see that the breach approach did not work very well, right? The Viper approach definitely was the way to go. Again, similar with like Killjoy. Killjoy was definitely the way to go over Cypher or anything else, or not playing Killjoy, right? Play Killjoy, play Viper. The way the meta went, it looked like was the correct direction, right? Statistically, those agents of the direction the meta went was correct, and teams followed the wins essentially here. And another thing as well when we come to the duelists is that Neon did pretty well. A lot of this again was like early on, like Cloud9. You might remember Foot doing well early on, kind of lock in on this map, you know, with the Neon doing very well in that sense. Raze still did okay towards the end of the year as well. You know, Raze was still positive, still looking good, and was still, you know, the clear choice of the duelists as well. Jett did not do as well, and especially considering we've got the Jett nerfs as well now. Again, I'm just going to put Jett to rest on this whole thing. Don't play Jett on this map. Raze is a better option. Neon is a better option. Hell, at this point, I might say Yoru is a better option. Go with one of them instead. You don't need to play Jett on this map. Moving on to Pearl, and again, we won't spend too much time on this one because the map isn't there. And this follows kind of what the comps were as well, right? Harbor Viper struggled particularly early on, again, when teams didn't know how to play Harbor Viper on this map. And other than that, there isn't much to say, other than, hey, Paper X did well with Phoenix. Go Phoenix! Woo! And then we'll come to Split, and I'm going to ask a similar question to Haven here, but the inverse, which is that on this map, in my 2022 stats, Omen beat Astra pretty handedly. Here we are in 2023. And Omen is beating Astra fairly handedly, right? Again, you could say small sample size, all of that, but 2 years in a row, I'm starting to get a bit suspicious, right? I'm just getting suspicious. And again, Cypher is another one where Cypher is just good on this map. I don't know what else to tell you other than Cypher is definitely good on Split. I know that's not necessarily a hot take by any means, but Cypher this year, again, very nice win rate. Cypher last year, remember Chamber? Remember the old Chamber meta? Guess who had a much better win rate than Chamber on this map last year? It was Cypher. In fact, Cypher often destroyed Chamber on Split. So, yeah. Cypher, good on Split. Turns out that not a hot take. Cypher good on Split. Who would have thunk? And yeah, even Sage had an actually okay win rate. Again, we've seen teams really drift away from Sage, you know, kind of towards the back end of the year, but you know, Sage actually 12 and 14, it's not nearly as bad as you might think. But Conversely, the Jet Raze, the double duelist Jet, positive win rate, looking pretty good. Sky absolutely dominating. KO, not good, but Sky absolutely dominate on this map. So you can see that for some of these picks, you know, that have a high pick rate, yeah, they do pretty well. For others, they don't do as well, right? Which does bring into question, it's not like, you know, the more you get played, the more you lose. Sky is a great example that that is just not always the case. You can see a lot of play on this map, but in every game where someone doesn't play you, you win. And of course, it doesn't always come down to these one agents. There's only so much we can take away from it, but, you know, it's something to keep in mind. And now onto the overall pick rates. We've had to lose my face. I know you're all very disappointed at that. To come and take a look at this table. So this is all of the agents across all of those games, you know, just their overall pick rates here, ranked from first to last. We got Killjoy and Jet up at the top, and really you can see there's kind of sections to this. There's kind of a top 2, then like a next 4, then like a next 4, then like a next 4, and then like, you know, the below 10%. It's kind of an interesting how, you know, kind of clean it's almost grouped up here. But you can see Killjoy and Jet, probably no surprise, absolutely dominating. Interestingly enough, you know, at Champs, Raze actually was higher than Jet, so we were already trending to kind of on a downward Jet trajectory and an upwards Raze trajectory, and I think obviously with the nerf to Jet, that might even continue and start to balance out a bit more, where I would expect Jet to definitely be coming down and, you know, Raze potentially moving up even more. No surprise in the next agents as well, Sky, Omen, Viper, Raze, you know, seeing a lot of play on a lot of maps. Obviously, this started with Loud early on in the season. In fact, the top 5 agents literally are the Swamp comp, which potentially is no surprise either. So yeah, no surprise for them. That next group of agents, you know, like Asova, Breach, KO, Astra, they've all got their maps where they're going to see a decent amount of pick rate, so it makes sense. For Brim, Harbor, Cypher, Fade, you know, you're looking at more like maybe one map, you know, maybe 1 or 1.5 maps where they see quite a bit of play. And then obviously you got your less than 10%ers there. Chamber was a bit of a riser towards the end of the season with Champs. And of course you got Deadlock there at the bottom. LOL, 0%. Never would ever see a pick if, you know, we ran this season 1,000 times, might still not see a pick in her current state. Okay, now let's come to the overall win rates though, and before you screenshot anything and go, I'm a Phoenix main, Phoenix is at the top by a whole 7%, look at that, look at me, I know I'm onto something playing Phoenix. Yeah, before you go into any of that, obviously the top 3 have a very small sample size, and then, you know, from there on, this whole thing, you can only take really so much away from it, because for instance, let's take Neon, right? Neon only gets played and experimented on maps where people know Neon is at least a decent option, right? She only sees some experimentation on Fracture and on Lotus. And on those maps, Neon's a perfectly fine pick. But she's never getting the losses from being, you know, put on Ascent, right? Where Neon wouldn't be a great choice and would probably lose, right? So that's what you have to consider. For instance, an agent like Jet is getting played on Bind, right? Jet isn't good on Bind, right? But teams still play her on Bind because they think, well, we've got a player who can only play Jet, right? Or we, you know, it's Jet, so play her on every map, right? And no, because Jet just isn't that good on Bind. And so Jet suffers because of that in terms of that. It doesn't mean that Jet is a bad agent. It just means that, you know, we're getting experimented with either teams that don't know what they're doing, or, you know, it's just like we're forcing it because we can't play anything else, you know, stuff like that. However, let's just take a look at some of the numbers, which I think are interesting. For instance, Killjoy, right? Killjoy's still up there at 54%, but Killjoy gets played on every map. Killjoy gets experimented on pretty much everything because it's Killjoy, and Killjoy is good and was the highest pick rate agent, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean either, and Killjoy is a good example here of just because you have a high pick rate, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to be down there, right? Killjoy is still up there, you know, agents like Sova, Raze are still up there as well. You know, so in general, yes, some of the more niche picks that don't get experimentation, you know, will be higher on this. But there's still quite a few agents there, you know, like a Killjoy, like a Raze, who can, you know, withstand it and maybe just are pretty good. And maybe even, I mean, it's tough to say Killjoy's underrated, but maybe Raze this year was slightly underrated, particularly earlier on in the year, you know, versus a Jet. Anyway, moving on towards the bottom of the list, let's go there. I know a lot of you are going to look at me, particularly fans of this channel, and be like, TMV, you say to play Viper on every single map. Look at Viper's win rate. What's going on? Explain to me what's going on. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to blame the teams on this one for not knowing what they're doing with Viper, I guess, and some of these other comps. Again, a lot of it will have come from like Pearl early on, playing Harbor Viper. Don't know what we're doing. Lose, right, to a non-Viper comp. A lot of it will be that. But I still think Viper's very strong. Again, you can only take away so much from this. But down at the bottom, we've got KO, who struggled before as well in this. Sage, Omen, and Breach. Now, the Omen one and the Astra one, to some extent, can be explained again. Fnatic on Lotus, that's a big part of it. Omen is a good agent. Don't believe this. However, Breach, other than Deadlock, is at the bottom again. For the second year running, Breach is at the bottom. Now, again, this can be explained by the fact that his non-mirror win rates on Fracture and Haven, his most two played maps, have never been that great. But again, Breach is down there, and he has never made up for it on any other map, which always makes me suspicious. Because if these other agents can make it up for on other maps, you know, maybe an agent struggles on a certain map, but then they make up for it on another map, you know? But not Breach. Breach never makes up for it. And I know that I'm pretty down on Breach. I think Breach is overrated. And this would, you know, lean into my theory, my credence of my craft here, that Breach isn't as good and shouldn't be picked as much as people think, because for the second year running, Breach has the lowest non-mirror win rate overall. And yeah, so maybe don't play as much Breach, I guess. I don't know. Breach didn't do too well. He's better than Deadlock. I'll grant you that much. But yeah, maybe Breach. Not that he's a bad agent. I just don't think he's, you know, I just don't think he's that good either. I think he's okay. So that's my takeaway on Breach and everything else. I hope you all enjoyed this little 4-part series here of breaking down the stats. I will not be making a video for the next couple days because I will be on holiday. Yay! And yeah, so I'll see you when I get back, I guess. And maybe it'll be tanned TMV. Peace out.